We are thrilled to welcome our very special guest, Helen Patton. She's a strategic cybersecurity advisor at Cisco, formerly served as the Chief Information Security Officer at The Ohio State University, holds a master's degree in public policy. She writes very thoughtfully and diligently about cybersecurity. I read her articles all the time. She's the author of Navigating the Cybersecurity Career Path, book that I have one right here. I love it. It's more than just navigating the cybersecurity career path. It actually its content is also a nice introduction to cybersecurity, pretty much at all levels, introductory and in the leadership world as well. So it is well worth getting a hold of that book. She is known not only for her expertise and advocacy of cybersecurity, but she's pro-NAP and famously anti-bagpipe. Now I have to counter that. I was stationed in Scotland for 3 years and took bagpipe lessons for one of those years. Hearing bagpipes play brings tears to my eyes, but I think probably different tears than comes to Helen's eyes. So, without further ado, please join me in welcoming Helen Patton.
Thank you very much for having me. And you're right, I actually blame a music student. Actually, it was music faculty at Ohio State who would play the bagpipes under my office window every day at lunchtime for 3 years straight. And after that, I decided enough is enough. So here we are. So thanks for having me. Today, I'm going to be talking about AI and cybersecurity. If you are not a cybersecurity person, I promise there will be things in here for you. But we're gonna give an overview of where I'm seeing it today, and in giving this talk, one of the things that's frustrating about AI is that we have more questions than answers, and I can't promise that I'm going to answer all the questions I raise in this presentation, but hopefully I'll give you something to think about whether you're a cybersecurity professional or not. So I am going to go ahead and share my screen and stuff. Hang on 1 second while I do that. And
That's
hopefully
good.
you're seeing my presentation, yeah?
Yep.
Awesome. Okay. So let me get going. So when I talk about AI to customers or to public in general, probably because I've got a master's in public policy, I want to start with what we're seeing in terms of regulation. And the reason that I want to start with that is because regulation informs the boundaries in which we can work and the boundaries in which AI, in this case, is going to function. So a little bit of this is called AI history in that it's from 2023. This is a historic document. There was an organization that came together to do an AI safety summit, and they came out with a statement about what they wanted AI to be or what they think it should be, and it was called the Bletchley Declaration. Bletchley, as in Bletchley Park, for those of you who watched the movie The Imitation Game, that Bletchley Park. And you'll notice here in the text that the focus of this group, which was an international academic and policy body, was that they wanted AI to be as human-centric as possible. So humans in the middle of AI. That's where we sort of started. So then coming off of that, the EU, not surprisingly, given that the EU is really the lead in privacy sort of policy, came out with the AI Act, which talked about risks associated with AI. And so they've classified different kinds of use cases of AI into different risk classifications. And there are certain things that they consider unacceptable. You can see them here on the screen: social scoring, face recognition, that kind of thing. Down to, things that they're calling limited risk, which includes image generation. Now, I don't know about you, but we start to see image generation as becoming more and more risky. So I don't know how often they're going to reevaluate their risk criteria here. But this came out in February 2024. Okay, so almost 2 years ago now. And then in October of 2023, under the Biden administration, the White House came out with an executive order that talked about how the US federally is going to be approaching AI. And you can see from this, if you haven't seen it before, it was about safety and it was about human rights and it was about worker protections for sure. And somewhere in there, it also talked about responsible use and it also talked about advancing American leadership in AI. So that was all included in that original executive order. It got pulled, right? So with the incoming administration in January of the first year of the Trump administration, he first of all came out with an executive order that was, as executive orders are, it was like 1 or 2 pages long. And it basically said whatever we said before no longer applies. But what we're going to do is to make America lead in the AI arena. And he directed some of his departments to come up with a strategy of how they were going to do that. They had about 180 days to come up with that strategic plan. And so it's just been announced in the last couple of months. There are a few things in here. There's certainly accelerating innovation, which in this particular section of the strategic plan talks about things like workforce development, also regulation minimization. They talk about improving AI infrastructure, and I will get into why that's important in a little bit. And then also talking about leading in diplomacy and security on the international stage. So primarily around export controls and things of that nature. Okay. So that action plan just came out in federal terms in July, which means we haven't actually seen a lot of change happen as a result yet. But this is the direction it's heading, right? So they're looking to minimize regulation. They're looking to gird up the infrastructure around the use of AI. And they're looking to make sure that at a diplomacy level, that America is doing what it can because it is seen as a national security interest to have the most advanced AI possible. Okay. So that's at the federal level. What I'm seeing in the United States is most AI policy that directs how organizations or how people can use AI is actually happening at the state level. And pretty much and it's just like privacy regulations and it's just like cyber incident response regulations. Every state's got its own regulation and they've got different viewpoints on things. So there are 4 states that have come out and said their state government entities are not allowed to use AI at all. Now, I don't know how they enforce that given that AI is infused in pretty much every tool available to us these days, but they've come out and they've said, you're not to use it for government use, period. 4 states have done that. California most recently came out with a regulation in the last month that's getting a lot of attention that talks about how companies that produce AI should be able to put guardrails around AI and prove that the AI is safe. Again, not sure how they're going to enforce it, but watch this space. It's considered a leading thing. Of the states that are actually quote unquote leading, and by that I mean when they do something, other states look and other states tend to follow. California, New York, Illinois, and Arkansas. I call it the Walmart effect. Arkansas actually is quite advanced in terms of tech policy. Go figure. So watch those states. Ohio's got some stuff going on as well. I would definitely keep an eye on that if you want to be producing your own AI, or if you are concerned about ethical use of AI at the consumer level, it's going to come to you at an Ohio regulatory level probably first before it comes at you from a federal level. So something to think about. All right. So that's the policy sort of landscape that we're working in right now, what are we seeing businesses do? Well, there's a lot of chatter about AI, but there is also some things that are stopping business adoption of AI. And the three things that you see on the slide here are the three things that we're seeing: compute, power, goes back to that whole infrastructure problem, and trust. So, from a compute perspective, what I'm talking about here is that we're moving toward, in a business sense, and for those of you who are on the call who are AI researchers, I'm sorry, I'm probably going to say something wrong, and I'd love for you to tell me if I do. So feel free to give me feedback. However, from a compute perspective, the conventional wisdom in the industry is that previous use of networks and network usage was spiky, in that there were loads that would happen at certain times of day, and at other times of day the loads would go down, and our networks and the switches and the hardware of the internet was able to handle that. As we move towards using agents and bots, those things sort of never sleep. So the perception is that, one, it requires more, AI requires more compute power in general. So loads are higher, but they're consistently high loads. And that changes what we need our networks to be able to do. And a lot of organizations have old networks that can't handle that kind of load. So we are seeing an investment, and welcome to Cisco, we're a network company first and foremost. We are certainly seeing increases in purchase orders and so forth as organizations start to refresh their networking to be able to better handle AI loads. So there's a hardware component to this challenge. The second thing, of course, is power, and I'm going to come back to that in a second. And the third is trust, so I'm going to come back to that in a second too. So here's the power problem. We don't have enough power to be able to power the AI data centers. And it's sort of interesting being here in Ohio, and particularly central Ohio, as I'm sitting here in Columbus, and I'm surrounded by data centers of all the big tech companies, and we've got Intel chip making plants and all the things coming up. And the question is, can our power grid support it? But also, can our water handle it? Can our water tables handle the power and the heating and cooling that goes along with these kinds of data centers, right? So across the United States, you will definitely see conversations about what we need to do to, one, improve the strength and capability of our power grids. There was an article in the Wall Street Journal this week that talked about tech companies investing in their own nuclear power because they can't wait for the traditional power companies to be able to improve the grids. So hello nuclear again, where it's back. The other piece to this, though, is we haven't worked out, and this is a policy problem, this is why I keep going back to policy, we haven't worked out who should pay for the cost of increased demand on power. Is it something that, if we've got consumers who are sitting on a power grid in their houses, should they have to pay higher electricity rates so that the power providers can stand up data centers that the AI companies, who are often very well funded, need to have? So this question about access to scarce resources in the age of AI has not yet been resolved. And so there is concern around our ability to keep growing and growing. Also, from an industry perspective, as things do, AI is getting more and more efficient in terms of its power consumption. No surprise. But the demand for it is going up the more efficient it gets. So net, it's costing us more power consumption requirements over time. So something to think about there. So, okay, so that's what's sort of stopping them. I will come back to the trust bit in a bit, because security is all about trust. How are businesses actually using AI? So this report came from a McKinsey report that came out in 2025. And you can see the major thing here is still in content creation. So whether you here they've called it marketing strategy content report support, but it's really content creation. It's industry research, it's data analytics, it's that kind of stuff. That's the biggest use at the business level right now. You'll notice down the bottom of the list doesn't mean nothing. It's 11% of it is scientific literature and research review. Okay, so for those of you who are in the research community, you're on the board. Good job. And then you see it getting things like integrated into customer service calls. So call center, chatbot, that kind of thing is definitely big. Supply chain management is one of the areas where we're starting to see it grow as well, right? So these are the places we're seeing it. Notice that you're not seeing it here in things like plumbing or medical service support. So a lot of those jobs and functions that require hands-on support isn't where AI is being deployed at the moment in business. This may change, but this is where we are right now. So one of the interesting things that have come out recently, by the way, every time I give this talk, I've got to update the presentation like the day before I give the talk because something has changed. Just want to say that. MIT came out with a report and said 95% of all AI pilots have failed. And it sort of hit the news. It was like, have we hit that point in AI adoption where we are in the trough of despair? For those of you who know Gartner hype cycles, right? Are we in the trough of despair? Maybe. Forbes came out with a subsequent report that said, yeah, but you're looking at the wrong things if this is what you're thinking. And the gist of these two reports together, and I'd recommend that you read both, is when an organization wants to do a, let's call it a, I'm putting it in air quotes, big AI thing, those things are failing, right? But where we see AI being adopted at the grassroots level, individuals who are using AI to make their individual job a little bit easier, that kind of stuff, we're seeing a lot of AI there, but it's really hard to measure the ROI of that. So you put these two things together, and what it would suggest to you is AI is being used in lots and lots of places, often in an unsanctioned way. And that unsanctioned usage is actually creating value that is hard for businesses to capture. Okay. So keep that in the back of your head, because we're going to come back to why this security people's heads explode in a little bit. So as you're thinking about AI as Miami University, one of the things to think about is what kind of consumer of AI are you? And you may be all of these things, right? You might just go buy it, like a Copilot, and a Claude, an Anthropic, or whatever. You might rent it, which is you're already buying some kind of software from someone else, a Workday software or a learning management system software, and that has AI capabilities within it, right? Or you're going to go build your own. And there are universities that I'm seeing that are going and building large language models, but much more often I'm seeing universities going and building small language models and doing deep research and training them on their own data for a specific purpose and having small language models instead of large language models. And those small language models sit on laptops, not data farms in a data center, right? So think about the kind of organization and the kind of usage either your department has, your college has, your university has, or what you have at home. Understanding what kind of consumer you are will also inform what kind of risks that you're subject to. So this came from the World Economic Forum a couple of months ago, and it's a way of thinking about the kind of organization you are and therefore what kinds of AI risks you might adopt. And so the titles along the top are really the factors to take into account. Where do you sit in your supply chain and how crazy are you for innovation? And in higher ed, We've got pieces of the organization that are highly innovative, and then we've got other pieces that never want to change from the Stone Age and everything in between. But thinking about the organization holistically, do you want to be doing cutting edge AI kinds of things? Yes or no? What kind of AI autonomy do you give people within the organization? Can people go create any agent they want and start using them? Or what? What kind of business do you have? Are you considered critical infrastructure? In the United States, higher education is not considered critical infrastructure. In Australia, it is considered critical infrastructure, which is really fascinating to me, not just because I'm Australian. So thinking about the nature of your business is also going to influence, how risky it is to incorporate AI into your workflows, your geography, and your threat context. So are you the kind of organization that is subject to politically motivated sabotage? Maybe, maybe not, right? Again, these are all things that are sort of continuums of risk that as a governance group at your institution, you should be sort of evaluating these and going, are we on the high risk side or on the low risk side? And that may determine what you need to do to manage the risk of your AI. So there's a professor from Wharton, his name's Ethan Mollick, and he wrote this book. It's a great book. If you haven't read it, by the way, this is not a cybersecurity book. This is a book for the masses like me who don't really understand AI and sort of struggle to go, how does it fit into my life? That kind of thing. Really interesting book to read. He also has a monthly blog. And a couple of months ago, he did this blog that he called The Bitter Lesson versus the Garbage Can. And the gist of this blog went something like this. One, in organizations, we have lots of business processes that are inefficient, unwieldy, and have sort of grown up over time. You can pick your favorite process that you have to deal with on a daily basis. Hiring employees, getting something purchased, writing a paper, getting grants approved, whatever your day-to-day is, think about what you do. There's probably some really gnarly, ugly business process somewhere in there, right? So keep that in your mind. Then there was AI research that said to get the best use out of AI, you don't tell it how to follow a process. You tell it what the outcome is you want, and you let it discern for itself the most efficient way to get there. Okay? Makes sense. As a security person, though, what makes my head explode about this is that one of the reasons our processes are unwieldy is because we have put administrative controls, which mean human controls, into a business process on purpose to reduce the risk of that process. So it might be something like an individual can't make a payment without somebody over their shoulder as a second set of eyes, right? Basic sort of financial accounting. Don't let one person have the authority to give money away, right? You've got to put two eyes on it. Or we might say, well, we're going to give access to this employee who's a new employee and they need access to this application, but their manager has to approve it because the people who do the administrating of the systems don't know whether the employee needs it. So the manager has to approve it. So we've got this extra step that says the manager has to approve it. Okay. Now we give AI access to everything, because by the way, it's going to need access to everything to be able to be efficient this way. And it's going to recommend to bypass all of those controls, probably, right? So this is it a security problem if we go down this path and let AI just decide how to get to an outcome? Maybe, right? Something to think about. For those of you who've done any reading around privacy or security in the last 20 years, you would have come across Bruce. He was a keynote. He's written a whole ton of books. He's like Cybersecurity Hall of Fame. He's an OG in the industry. He gave a talk at RSA which is the biggest cybersecurity conference on the planet, last year around trust and AI. And and his question, what could be done about insecure AI without regulation? Nothing. You're screwed, right? So again, I'm going to go back to regulation. And this isn't about sitting back and waiting for the federal government to do something. This is also about what are you doing at an institutional level to decide what you can and can't or should and shouldn't be doing with AI. It's really super important, okay, if we're going to build trust. So something to think about. I'm going to let this run out. Do one more. Oh, no, one more. Go back, Helen. So here's the other thing to keep in mind for all of us. One of the things we're seeing on the internet right now is this thing called the dead internet theory. Don't know if you've seen it, but the premise of this is this. We've got a whole bunch of AI creating content. We saw that, right? What are businesses using AI for the most? Content creation. Okay. They're doing that. There's so much content out, particularly in social media, that the only way to deal with it is with AI. So now you have AI talking to AI, and there is actually no human in the middle. Or if there is human in the middle, they're confused and overwhelmed and not trusting anything, right? More specifically, one of the places you see this is in job searching, right? We use AI to create a resume, to create a cover letter, to post to a job board that uses AI to filter your resume, to filter your cover letter. And we're even seeing AI being used in the interview process itself. And so we are seeing deep fake candidates showing up to do jobs from North Korea to get money to fund North. So it's a nation state thing, and it's also a survival of the fittest thing if you're a job seeker, right? Dead internet. So this is fun, right? We're having fun. Everyone's having fun. Good. Glad. Yep, we're having fun. Okay. So it's about to get worse. If you thought that was not fun, it's about to get worse. So what do security people do? We go through stages of grief. You've seen this. I know you've seen this. And by the way, that it's not linear. We tend to bounce back and forth, but let me give you some examples. First thing that happened when AI first came out, a lot of security people walked around and went, yeah, AI is just really fast machine learning. This is not a new thing. It's just more of the same with a different wrapper on it. This is just sales architecture. No, right? So we went, no, denial. Okay. And then we got a little bit angry about it. We were like, we've got enough on our plate without having to deal with AI, and we just got this whole cloud security thing sort of under control, and now you're putting something new on our plate. We got really angry. So we went all off to conferences together and like cried on one another's shoulders for a little while. And then we went to bargaining, and we're like, fine, you'll all have heard this. Okay, fine. You can use AI, but just don't put PI in it. You heard this? You can use AI, but don't do something silly. Like this was about as close as we could get to bargaining at this point. And then we all got depressed because we realized that that wasn't working, right? So again, went off to conferences, cried on one another's shoulders. And now here we are at hopefully an acceptance phase of it is here to stay. So what do we do about it? What do we do about it? As security professionals, but also as businesses in general. So this is where we're at. So one of the things I try and remind people is we've seen tech change before, right? And by the way, all these old pieces of technology makes me laugh that I even think these are old pieces of technology because I've worked on all of them. They're still here in some, like mainframes still exist, although we are seeing mainframes as a service now. So they may have morphed, but they're still around. The main difference with generative AI and soon to be agentic AI is that it's coming faster and it's increasing complexity exponentially, and it has the capability of doing bad things at scale really badly, right? So with the other previous sort of tech evolutions, we had time to work out how things should work, and we had time to sort of react and respond in an appropriate way, and it's feeling like we don't at the moment. It's feeling like we don't. So when you are a security person and you're thinking about your organization using AI, it's not just about thinking about how the organization uses AI, although we start with that. It is also, how do you make sure that the AI that we're building or developing is itself secure? We're also thinking about, how do we use AI for ourselves as security people? And then, of course, we're also thinking, oh my, our attackers can use AI as well. What does AI mean as a threat? Okay. So right now, if you're a security person, we're sort of pretty comfortable with what typical AI usage looks like in our organizations. What we don't know is what we don't know. So the concern is, where are people using AI in ways we don't know? And that's shadow AI, right? So can we know when somebody wants to put private information into a public model, ChatGPT, Claude, Anthropic, whatever? Can we know when somebody is creating their own LLM on their laptop, especially in a research environment? Like, you've got to assume that people are, but do we have a way of knowing it? Maybe, maybe not, right? In terms of the security of AI, there's lots going on there, but there are two main things right now to think about. One is identity management, and the other is data management, data governance. So here's what's happening. This is, again, coming out because of AI agents, agentic AI, more than anything else. The concern is, who owns the agent? Why are they using the agent? What access does the agent have access? What things does the agent have access to? Does the agent have the intelligence? I know there's a question about whether they have intelligence. Can the agent give itself more access than we originally thought it should have? Do we have a way of monitoring the agent to know, right? And who decides when we no longer need the agent? So do we have a way? Do we have a way of measuring efficacy of agents and deciding whether we keep them or not, right? All of these things are really familiar because we do these with humans. Why do you need this employee? What kind of access should the employee have? What happens when their jobs sort of change a little bit? Now they need more access. Or what happens if they get more access than they should really have and then they abuse that level of access? How do we monitor employee access? Not monitor employees, monitor employee access. How do we, when do we know if an employee no longer works here or they've passed away or whatever, right? Same thing happens for humans. The question is, the problem is with humans, we've sort of got structures in place between legal, HR, and IT to manage those things. We don't have those structures in place for non-human identities, aka agents, right? So identity management for AI is a big concern right now. The second is data governance. I had a customer who decided they wanted to do a customer chatbot. It was a state, actually, and they wanted to use a chatbot so citizens could work out where to go in the state for different services. This was early on. This was like 18 months ago. So they trained that chatbot on all their web data. And the only problem with that was that they hadn't cleaned up their web data. And so they had really old web pages that had people who died and departments that no longer existed. And this was what they trained their chatbot on. So one of the things that we talk about with tech debt, people think technical debt and they think old hardware. Actually, technical debt also includes bad old data. And so all of us have an opportunity, and I've spoken about this before, to go and get rid of old stuff that you no longer need. It will help your AI, actually, if you want to use it, right? So identity management, data governance, and data management are the two things right now that organizations are realizing that they've really got to double down on if they're going to do AI institutionally at scale really well. Okay, so something to think about. Now, for security people, I'm going to get a bit geeky, there's lots of help out there right now. So NIST has come out with an AI framework that for us to follow. OWASP has come out with stuff. I'm going to talk about that in a second. MITRE, which talks about attack patterns, has come out with an LLM attack framework called MITRE Atlas, right? MIT has come out with an AI risk repository. So if you care less about the tech and you're just sort of more like what's going wrong in AI right now, you can go look at the risk repository, right? And then of course we've got AI security bills of material or software bills of materials, which is an idea of, okay, if you're going to create an AI thing, you better let everybody know what's in it so that we can manage it. Watch this space. I'm not sure we're ready for this one yet, but it's here. So there's a whole bunch of stuff that's out there that folks can use to start managing the risks of AI. Here's the thing, it's a little overwhelming. So one of the things that I tell security people to do is to apply mental models to new things to identify when those new things really are new and whether we've really seen them before. So the Cynefin framework, which is, that's a Welsh word and I'm probably mispronouncing it. It's sort of like that bagpipe thing. It's not sure. Anyway, Cynefin framework is a way of sort of understanding and sensing an environment and working out what's new and what's not. So when AI first came out, I applied the Cynefin framework to the work that I was doing to say, have I seen it before? Have I seen it before? So with that in mind, here is the OWASP top 10 for large language models. So what are the top 10 risks associated with AI large language models? And you don't have to be a security professional to get this, I promise. There are 10 things in here. And if I'm thinking about the Cynefin framework and I'm like, have I seen it before? Let's start with that. Have I seen it before? When I look at the names of these things, it's some I have and some I haven't, right? So prompt injection, new. Sensitive information disclosure, we've dealt with that before. Supply chain problems, we've dealt with that before. Model poisoning, new, right? Improper output handling, maybe new, right? So you can go through all of these and say, have we seen it before? Have we not? And if we've seen it before, what have we done about it? And is what we've done about it before helped? And can we apply it now, right? So supply chain is how we got to the point where we're like, we are going to assess all of our vendors to know how they manage cybersecurity so that we have some level of assurance that they're going to protect our data that they have on our behalf as well as we do. That's sort of the theory behind it anyway, right? Can we apply that? Well, yes, we can certainly assess our vendors to see if they're managing the risks of AI to the degree that we would want them to. We can do that, right? So that's fine. But it still looks like there's a whole bunch of new stuff here. But if you go down into the next level of how they describe what the problem is, there's actually not that much that's new. So that first one, which is jailbreaking, prompt injection and jailbreaking, you're like, oh my God, well, it's new because we didn't have prompts like this before. And yeah, but what they mean is unintended outputs due to user and system entry. Well, have we ever in the past had unintended outputs because users did weird stuff with technology? Why, yes, we have every single day, right? So again, is jailbreaking really that new? Maybe, maybe not. What did we do to deal with it in the past? Well, we put configuration management around it, right? We put rules in place. We governed it with policy engines. Can we do that today? Yes, we can do that today, right? So there's only maybe a couple of things that are new on here. One is system prompt secrets sharing. And even I might argue this isn't really new either. We find secrets, and by secrets I mean passwords, login credentials, certificates, those kinds of things. We find those in all kinds of weird places, including SharePoint sites and Slack conversations and all those kinds of things, right? So is this really truly new? No, but being able to trick a language model into revealing secrets is potentially new, right? The other thing is hallucinations is sort of new. You might argue that we've had computers spit out bad shit for a really long time, and that's the same thing as hallucination, maybe, right? But Okay, hallucinations are new, but certainly the over reliance on hallucinations or bad data isn't new, right? Isn't new. So, is it that new? Maybe, maybe not. What is new is, again, AI is causing complexity at scale and will cause bad things to happen at scale. At scale. That's what's new about AI. So, in terms of security for teams, right now, security teams are looking at all of the things that they do, all their business processes, all of their tooling that they use, and trying to work out what has changed, what they can be doing within those tools and processes to incorporate AI into what they do. And I'm guaranteeing you John's team is doing that at Miami already as well, right? It is also a question around workforce redesign. This is one of these places, by the way, where I have just read something this week that makes me want to change my slides. So I'm going to come back to this in a second. And then the last one is AI as a threat. Here's the thing. We are now starting to see AI be responsible for generating new ways of attacking computer systems. But for the main part, for the bulk of attacks that are happening, it is still the same old stuff. It's just happening faster. And it's cheaper for bad actors to use AI to do old stuff than it used to be. So we're seeing more attacks, more frequent attacks, more the ability of attackers to find weaknesses faster, but they're still using the same techniques and tactics at the moment. And we are starting to see that change right now. Okay, so keep your eye on talking to vendors like Cisco or Talos or whatever, and we'll sort of be able to help you understand what's truly happening. There is still some great reports out there, but like the Verizon breach report that comes out every year, but it only comes out once a year. And this is a space where things are changing really, really fast. So you're going to need to have more real-time sort of research data available to you on that one. Oh, let me go back to workforce tool design. So I've spent a lot of time thinking about sort of what does this mean for teams? Oh, no, I'm going to go back. Sorry about if I'm making you seasick. What does this mean for teams? There's a lot of discussion right now around will using AI cut off the bottom rung of the professional ladder? Are we using AI to replace junior level resources? And this is true in security for sure. A lot of our junior resources go into security operations centers. This is where we're seeing AI being deployed first in our security stack. And so the question is, if we're going to use AI to do security operations entry level work, how do we train people up to become mid-level managers or eyes on glass kind of managers? There's a book out now called Reshuffle. If you're interested, I'd go take a look at it. I don't have a picture of it. If you need me to give you the full citation to it, hit me up on this later. Reshuffle is the name of the book. And in this one, he says, if we're thinking about AI replacing individual jobs or individual skills, we're thinking about it the wrong way. That instead it is AI is going to change the entire process, the way we communicate across processes. So one of the things to think about for your security teams, but also for your jobs in general, if you're not a security person, is not can AI replace the tasking that I do in my job, but what will AI mean to the entire life cycle of what I do? So if you're an HR person, for example, what does it mean for all the elements of HR and onboarding and offboarding and managing life of employees? If you're in purchasing, what does that mean for the entire life cycle if AI can do some of these different things? If you think about it at the macro level, that will then allow you to think about what kind of skilling you need at the personal level. Okay, so something to think about. All right, last slide, because I know I'm almost out of time. What do you do now with all of this? So some things. Basic cyber hygiene, which I've spoken to you all about before. MFA, backups, 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 MFA backups, password managers, um, keeping your systems up to date and current as best you possibly can. Basic sort of cyber hygiene stuff, keep doing that. It will still take care of 80 to 90% of the things that are going on in the AI world if you do that. Number two, smaller AI projects. Don't go for the big bang just yet. Start sort of bottoms up more than tops down in terms of use cases. So, what might that look like? If you are going to start using agents, inventory the agents. Make sure there is an owner for the agent. Make sure you know why the agent is needed, and make sure that everybody else knows the agent exists so that you're not duplicating stuff and causing double the attack surface. Okay. So, inventory your agents, clean up your data. We've spoken about that. Do incident response exercises like tabletops that incorporate the potential for AI into the scenario. Okay, give people some headspace to think about the potential implications of AI, so that when it happens, because it'll happen, it won't be a big shock. But most importantly, keep learning here. The idea here is not to be the master of AI, but just to continuously learn. So make sure that you're setting up your work and your time and your energy so that you can continue to pay attention to whatever it is about AI that interests you, but particularly how AI is impacting your job and your industry is going to be super important. So, with all of that, that's what I wanted to share with you today. And I don't know if I missed any questions in the chat. Oh, were you all able to see my screen? No one yelled out at me to say you weren't. Okay. Phew. All right. Are there any questions?
I have a question or two, but let me see if anybody else does before I start talking.
I do.
Go
We
ahead.
hear, I've heard a lot of complaints from professors, et cetera, about how students are using AI. How do you see AI changing education?
Yeah.
Because you said you talked about it changing the entire system.
Yep.
Wouldn't that start with education?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Education and students are being completely disrupted. I mean, certainly students are going to AI.
Yep.
It's a tool, right? And so they're going to AI. So when AI first came into higher ed, there was lots of questions around, well, do we, put up some code of conduct that we expect students to follow? Do we put them into the course curricula that talks about, how AI should be used and those kinds of things? And then it sort of morphed into how can we use AI in the classroom to facilitate learning? Does it give us new ways of facilitating learning by having AI in the classroom? Or do we leave AI out of the classroom and use it for a different purpose? The conversation, I am not a PhD in educational theory, so I'm not going to tell you I have the answers for this, other than to say, yes, it is definitely having impact. And yes, there are lots of curriculum committees and educational PhDs who are trying to work out the right way to do this. I will tell you from a Cisco perspective, as we work with higher ed education institutions, we are seeing the introduction of things like AI bots that are tutors for students. We're seeing schools implement AI companions for students that don't just tutor them on a single subject, but sort of support them as they navigate the higher education environment.
Mhm.
So yeah, it's here, it's going to stay, and it's not just about, do students understand how to use AI, it's also, can faculty and staff leverage AI in a positive way to be able to facilitate the goals of the institution and the goals of the individual students who are there. And I don't think we've reached a point where we've got accepted conventional wisdom or standards around that yet.
All
But for
right.
sure, yeah, yeah.
Thank you. Thank
Mm-hmm.
you.
Any other questions? Let me dig just go a little bit deeper with M's thought. We a few months ago, I'll say 3 months ago or so, we had some faculty concerned faculty and some staff come to us, our office, the Information Security Office. They had witnessed online and then exercised themselves the ability for ChatGPT agent to, from a student's perspective, log into Canvas, find out what assignments were due on a certain day, ask it to do the assignment, and turn it in and submit it with their authentication, so that it could do everything,
Mhm.
and the student didn't have to do anything but write the prompt. Um, I don't know of any of that actually happening here at Miami. Maybe you've heard that, or maybe others here have experienced that. But I'm curious your thoughts on how we deal with that.
Uh, yeah. So at the main EDUCAUSE conference last year, one of the keynote speakers talked about what constitutes cheating. And I guess the question is, would you constitute that as cheating? And I'm going to summarize the takeaways I took from that talk. Um, and I'm probably going to hash it and do a bad job of my summary. So I would encourage you to go back and look at that presentation if you can. In short, his definition of cheating was doing something that stopped a student from achieving the goals of the student. And so in that example, you could say, well, if the goal of the student is to learn something, doing what they did doesn't facilitate learning, right? So, yeah, they're cheating and they're probably violating school policy in doing it, but also they're hurting themselves. And so, part of the challenge, as a lot of schools are like, well, we need to start thinking about incorporating AI into general education curriculum, like the Ohio State University's done, is to be able to say, we've got to give students ways of thinking about what is appropriate and inappropriate use. But again, that's going to be a the technology is there, and there are students who are going to do it. Students are very creative. If they don't want to do something, they will use technology to find a way around it, and they always have, and they always will. So this is just the most recent example of with that in the past. This is one of those Cynefin framework things, is have we seen something like this before? Why, yes, we have. What have we done in the past, and does it apply? It's that kind of thing.
Thank you,
Yeah.
Helen. So we are at about time. I want to first of all, I'm going to ask. I always get requests for your slides. So if it's possible to
Of
share
course,
those at some point, that would be
I will.
fantastic. I
Yep.
really loved your points about the doing non-human asset management for the agents, identity management, data management, all exceptional things that I don't think we've thought enough about that here. So that's very, very helpful, and all the rest. So, but we can't thank you enough. It's truly an honor to have you in our presence, Helen. We just truly enjoy it. We always learn a lot from it. Thank you for taking the time to join us during National Cybersecurity Awareness Month. And I want to thank everybody that joined the call, and hope you have a great rest of your October, a happy Halloween, and a wonderful end of the year. Thank you, Helen.
Thank you.